Hi, folks. Cesar here. Thanks for joining our show. We have an amazing show tonight. Very happy, very pumped. There's energy in the studio. We have a very special guest, my friend. Full disclosure, I've donated to his campaign, Mr. Steve Descano, the Commonwealth Attorney for the County of Fairfax. Steve, welcome to the show, sir.
Cesar, it is a pleasure to be here. I'm always happy when I get a chance to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thanks. I should have mentioned to the folks, you were elected in 2019.
Yes.
It was a while ago.
It just seems like yesterday, buddy.
It goes fast.
It does.
It does go fast. So let's start off with kind of refreshing everyone's memory. What you been up to? Some of the accomplishments that you're proud of.
Well, there's actually quite a bit that I'm proud
Okay.
of. Really from a macro standpoint, taking over the office after it had been held by an incumbent for 12 years and then the person before him for decades, we really worked hard to change the culture of the office. The culture of the office when we took over was win at any cost type of office, which to our mind didn't really produce just outcomes and it actually hurt community safety. So we changed the ethos of the office where we were really focused on this idea that we can reform our system, we can seek justice instead of just wins and statistics, get good outcomes and keep our community safe. And I'm happy to say that that has proven correct. So on the reform side, we've done a lot of things such as, we're really no longer criminalizing poverty. Which was a big problem.
God bless you, man.
Right? Our justice system should not be a thing that punishes poor people just for being poor. So you can see us doing that, in ways such as we no longer seek cash bail. Instead of when we go to a judge and there's an argument over whether somebody should be held pretrial or not, instead of making our determinations based on how much money they have or punishing poor people for being poor, what we're doing is we're looking at dangerousness. Right? People want their prosecutor's office to focus on keeping the community safe. Cash bail doesn't do that. It just creates a two-tiered system of justice, one for the rich, one for everybody else. What we do now is we focus on dangerousness. And we're seeing really, really good outcomes with that approach when we argue in front of judges. Another big thing that I'm really personally very pleased about is our focus on diversion. And when I talk about diversion, what I'm talking about is, look, there is, in the traditional system, there's only been one way to deal with any problem, which is you go to prison for a long time. But we know that most people, when they go to jail or prison, they come back to their community. And they come back a lot of times worse. So what we do is, of course, we save jail and prison for the people who need it. But for some of our nonviolent, lower-level first-time offenders in particular, we try to divert people into programs that get at their root causes of why they've made a mistake or why they've done something wrong. Not because we are trying to be nice people. It is a nice thing to do, but really because it's effective. What we've seen study after study with diversion programs is it drops recidivism by 50% when done right. Because people don't have the criminal record that's going to keep them from getting an education, getting a job, getting a house, which then kind of forces them back into crime. So those are some big accomplishments that we're really, really happy about. And I can say just from a very, very high level, that we've reformed our system, we've done those things, and at the same time, crime is down almost 10% since the time I've taken over.
That's great. Now, and just to double click a little bit on the cash bail, how difficult was that transformation? I mean, institutions have this sort of innate need to stay the same, right? And people get caught up in the process. Well, that's not, Steve, that's not how we do things. Or, oh, we don't do it that way. Yeah, it's not going to work. We don't have the money. I mean, can you help us a little bit on how big of a lift was that transformation?
It was a pretty big lift, and I'll tell you why. It's exactly the reason you said. When I came in the office, I told people, I said, look, we're going to take a look at everything and see what needs to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed. But an answer that is not acceptable is, well, because that's the way we've always done it. Right? Exactly, right? And as you know, sometimes these bureaucracies, that's the only reason why they do certain things, is because that's the way they've always done it. I will say that it was a big lift getting this idea, right? Trying to educate people in the office, people in the system, that really cash bail, paying an amount of money, doesn't have anything to do with public safety.
Right.
If you are not a danger to the community, you shouldn't be held pretrial just because you can't afford $1,000. But that was happening all the time.
Right.
And it's bad, and it's a bad outcome. At the same time, if you are a real danger to the community, it doesn't matter if you can post $1 million bail. It's not going to keep the community safe. So there was a big education piece that was very, very difficult at first. Now, I will say that things have gotten a little easier. Of course, we make our recommendations, the judges make the final decision. But I think what we saw was we really preached getting rid of cash bail, we really preached not doing it, and then we were actually kind of aided by COVID. We were aided by COVID because it was a public health necessity to make sure that the only people who were in jail were those people who were dangerous. And then, because we don't want COVID spreading into jail. And then once we were able to do that, we actually worked very, very hard to get a lot of non-dangerous individuals out of jail. And then I think when the community, when the bureaucracy saw that that did not in fact lead to an increase of crime, they were very receptive, more receptive maybe than they had been to the idea. So it was a heavy lift. I'll be very honest, there are still a few judges who may rely on cash bail. But that is a process that we are working towards, because I know our office doesn't ask for it, and I think that we've gotten a lot of buy-in from other stakeholders to see that it's not a good thing.
So, and just for clarification, it's more of a practice and a process versus a legislative or these like guidelines or
Well, it's actually really interesting. Yeah. One of the big things that we've done as reform generally is there was a lot of power vested in the prosecutor. Quite frankly, power that should be with judges. Legislatively, there were bail presumptions that gave a lot of power to the prosecutors to say, no, this is a presumption case. There has to be a cash bail, and we're demanding it. We're not waiving that presumption. That law has since changed, but while it was in effect, we didn't rely on those presumptions. Yeah. We really wanted to give the power to make that decision, not back to the judges, but we didn't want to stand in the way. We make our arguments, and we're hoping to with the tools that we have and with the success that we've shown, that we're able to convince judges to see it our way.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, I think that was one of the things I think from the community, it needed to be done, right? Because I think, I don't have the actual numbers, but from what I recall, this group that happened to be more economically challenged was a higher percentage representation of the detention centers, right?
Absolutely.
And then debt incurred on that, so.
Yeah, it really was people making money, an industry that made money off of the backs of our poorest people.
Right.
And quite frankly, not only does it not make any sense, it actually wasn't necessary. In Fairfax County, we are very blessed to have a great pretrial services program, meaning that we have ways to keep in contact with individuals, programs to put people on as they await trial, right? So we didn't even have the intellectual underpinnings that were always very rickety in other jurisdictions, but we didn't even have those rickety intellectual underpinnings to say that cash bail is a good thing. Gotcha. But you're right, it was a big problem. Poor minority communities were getting caught up in the cash bail trap, and I'm happy to say that we don't really see that much of it anymore.
Great, awesome. Talk to me also, we touched a little bit on diversion programs. What was it like? What's the state now, status? How's that working?
Well, the way that it was before I took over, there were a few court-run diversion programs under the rubric of diversion first, which were specialty courts. Mental health docket, veterans docket, drug treatment docket. Those programs still exist. As a matter of fact, we have worked with our court and our county board to expand them, and particularly on the drug program, we've improved it by moving it up in the process, really focusing on getting people help instead of trying to imprison them out of their drug addiction. Yeah. But what I'm really excited about is the programs that we were able to build. You know, I like to say that what we build, we didn't just build more programs, we built next generation programs. And what I mean by that is typically a diversion program, everybody goes through the same thing. You know, no matter what your life circumstances, if you did X, you have to do Y. Well, what we got now is we actually have built a program, and we got funding from a number of sources to do this. It's going to be the biggest diversion program in the Commonwealth. I'm very excited about this. but it's all going to be individually tailored. Meaning every person, they're going to get an assessment, they're going to get a caseworker, that caseworker is going to, and that assessment are going to determine what these individuals need to do to fulfill the program. It's not just doing things to do them, it's actually helping these individuals. I think that we're going to see recidivism go down. And the biggest thing that I'm happy with this program is that successful completion means that their record is wiped. It means that their arrest is completely taken off their record. So it really does give people a second chance, which when you give people that second chance through diversion, what we see study after study is education and employment tends to go up because they don't have the record that's going to limit them. And as employment goes up, recidivism goes down. So again, it's cost effective, and it helps an individual, and it builds long-term community safety. So when we're talking about diversion, we're talking about what I think is the next generation of criminal justice, and we're leading that here in Fairfax County.
That's awesome. I love the visionary piece. I think modernizing or bringing that type of service or process into the justice system, I think the country could use some of that, right? I mean, it just my humble opinion.
Well, I'll tell you, I have to agree with you, and I have to say that other jurisdictions are taking note, not only in Virginia but around the country, and I'm really proud of that because I know when I ran for office, talking about reform, about the need for criminal justice reform, I got a lot of, yeah, that's a good idea, but this isn't L.A., this isn't Philadelphia, this isn't New York, and that really bothered me. Because the situations are different, and of course we don't just take ideas from those places and put them on here. Everything's crafted for Fairfax County. But we're showing it can work. We're showing it can work in a suburban jurisdiction, a jurisdiction that's not centered around one big city. And I'll tell you that we get calls probably every week from people around the country asking, hey, I read about what you did. What was that idea? How can we do it here? So eventually, when people are running on a criminal justice reform platform, they're going to get, it's not Philly, it's not LA, but they're going to be able to say, yeah, but it's a lot like Fairfax.
Well, and let's come back. By the way, we're wrapping up our first segment here. So, folks, when we come back, we're going to keep Steve here talking about some more of the modernization updates and accomplishments. I like what I've heard so far. I hope you're liking what you've heard so far. Coming back, we'll talk about public safety as well. I can barely hear that thing, so.
Old man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go. Yeah, you got me in your well.
Nice one. Some friends you are. Hi.
Hi.
Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Wanted some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about rooftop life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward.
I'm the awkward silence.
You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing. Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. Welcome back. Appreciate your time this evening. We have a super special guest with me in Studio C this evening, Steve Descano, Commonwealth Attorney for Fairfax County. Sir, thank you again for coming to the show. Let's kind of wrap up what we were talking about previous segment and then move on. You've gotten a lot of notoriety. A lot of people are checking out what you're doing here. What's the converse been? What's the contrarian view been?
Well, you know, the contrarian view has, look, it's not surprising. Anytime you change anything, people are gonna complain about it, even when the results are objectively,
of course,
winning. Yeah. So we get a lot of attacks on our reforms. You know, I was talking about diversion programs a minute ago. Of course, you know, they work, they help people, they increase public safety, but yet we still hear attacks from, you know, people like our Attorney General, for example, in Virginia. Things about, hey, if you do the crime, you got to do the time, or that's not accountability, or this, or you know, these diversion programs mean you don't care about victims. You know, I tell you that nothing can be further from the truth. These programs are difficult. They're about accountability, and when it comes to victims, Cesar, I'll tell you what victims tell me that they want is they don't want to be victimized again, and they know that the people that hurt them, if they go to jail, they'll come back. They don't want them to come back worse. What they want is them to come back to their community, not commit any crimes anymore, not victimize them, and be productive members of society. So that's really what we're doing, but people want to make their own political arguments to try to win votes, with going the other way.
Yeah, surprised how that works out.
Shocking. Never would have expected it in politics.
Public safety, though, has improved, right?
Absolutely.
And so enlighten us on some of the accomplishments you've seen there.
Well, you know, I think we've really threaded the needle. I've always told people you can build a system that is just, and you don't have to sacrifice public safety. You can have both. As a matter of fact, really long-term safety requires justice. Yeah. So in Fairfax County, since I took over in 2020, crime is actually down, almost 10%. And that is across multiple categories of crime, which means that in Fairfax County, we are the safest jurisdiction of our size anywhere in the United States. And that is across many, many metrics. You know, if you are in a community that has over 1 million people, if you're not Fairfax County, you're somewhere less safe than Fairfax. You know, when we have our bad faith actors, we talk about our governor, we talk about our attorney general, they want to make it sound as if Northern Virginia, some of our most diverse areas, what reformed prosecutors are, you know, these terrible places where murderers run rampant. Well, Cesar, I got to tell you, buddy, our murder rate in Fairfax County is less than 1/4 of the rate for the rest of the Commonwealth. And when if you were to make a list of all jurisdictions around the country of 1 million people or more, you would see that our rate is at the top. We are the safest jurisdiction of our size, and I think that things are only going to get better because as we are building these programs and actually taking a view towards long-term safety and bringing opportunity and hope back to communities, I think we're going to continue to see not only do we stay the safest jurisdiction, but community safety actually improves.
Yeah, and I think I've seen that change over time, right? I think as people come to this area, they realize how truly rich it is in diversity. I think in Fairfax County Public Schools, there's like 120 some languages spoken. So we have a lot of diversity across the board. And I mean, the fact that we can all kind of live together, being diverse, speaking languages and religious beliefs, I think there's a sense of connection to the community. Right. And what is that? I mean, and I think the work you're doing, the outreach, I think that speaks to why people feel more comfortable and safe here, right?
Well, I'd like to think so. You know, one of the things that I really focus on and my team really focuses on is, you know, we can sit here and say all day we live in the safest community of its size in the country, and we do, but it is imperative that our justice system works for every community, not just parts of it, but every single person who lives in Fairfax County, no matter which part of the county they live in, which language they speak, the color of their skin, how much money they make, they have to feel comfortable. They have to feel safe. And I'll tell you that, you know, before I took over, I know that there were many communities that did not feel that safe. Whether they felt that, that the office didn't take their problem seriously. And it's little things as well. For example, Fairfax County, you talk about 120 languages. When I took over the office, didn't have a single person, a single attorney that spoke Spanish. Can you imagine that in our community? Now we have attorneys that speak Spanish, we have attorneys that speak Korean, we have attorneys that speak Farsi.
God bless you, man.
All right, we want our office to represent the community it serves.
Yeah, and just on that note, because I have this conversation a lot with people, and it's not that we're trying to replace English.
Right.
People. That's not the point. I mean, God forbid if my mom ever got picked up, right?
Right.
She could she's more comfortable speaking Spanish, and she's been here forever. She can speak English. She can understand it, but there's something about one's native language that allows them to express themselves more accurately, and they're more comfortable in that. So I'm glad you're doing that, man. That is such a meaningful act. That gesture, it's small. It probably doesn't cost us much, but for people to not get it, I'm trying to help them understand why it's so important.
It's an obvious thing to you and me, but some people I think are willfully blind to it. And I'll tell you, it is. I like to think of it. It's not a nice to have, right? It's a need to have, because even if you don't care about making people feel comfortable, right? Even if you're hard-hearted and that doesn't matter to you.
We're a Christian nation, bro.
Right? If that's what but if you want a safe community, what do you need to have a safe community? You need to have community members who believe and trust in the system and who will come and participate.
That's right.
Because if you don't have that, if I don't have witnesses, if I don't have people who will talk to the police, if I don't have people that will come in and testify, what that means is that people who've committed crimes are not going to be held accountable, and they'll go back to those neighborhoods and see those neighborhoods as easy pickings. And that is where you get into a situation where, the numbers say we're safe, but there are entire swaths of our community that the justice system simply does not work for.
Yeah. And there is a difference when you're policing and enforcing with people that aren't engaged in the community, as opposed to providing safety and security with people that do engage in the community. And again, language is just one way to engage in them, right? And it's philosophically different. You're not just looking for someone to break a law and then respond. You're actually making them feel safer in this way.
That's 100% correct. You're right. It's not just language. It is about being in the community. One of the positions that I created, it's a deputy level position, which is the highest level position in the office. I call this individual my deputy for community justice. This is a person who helps us get out into the community and talk to people. And what we have found in 3 years of doing this is that different communities actually have different priorities and different needs and different fears. And in some ways, there are unique crimes to some of our different communities. For example, some of our immigrant communities that may not exist in, say, a wealthy area of McLean. A great example is we had a huge case that we did where individuals were coming from out of state. They were targeting immigrant homes or first-generation immigrant homes for home invasions. The idea being, well, these individuals, they may not speak English. They may not want to transact their business at a bank so that they have gold and cash and jewelry around, making them high-value targets. Without that outreach, without that really reaching out and caring about specifically what's going on in the community, we would not have understood that in the same way. We would have been less effective in dealing with that problem. And that's just one example. I could go on and on and on, but the fact of the matter is really being responsive to every individual community really helps every community feel safer.
Well, because again, it gives them a sense of connection to something larger than their neighborhood or their street, right? So I see why people are taking notice. I see why maybe people are taking pot shots too, because it is transforming the way the office operates, right? And that's always tough for institutional people to kind of grapple with. They don't like change.
No, some people don't. And look, when I put together our office, first of all, we've grown the office. which is great because we need people to do the outreach. We need people to do diversions. We need people to do the programmatic things that we're doing. But what we really focused on as we were growing the office and as we were filling it with people was the values that people brought, the view of the view of the world that they brought to prosecution. Because we can teach people how to put in evidence, make an opening statement, a closing statement. But what we really can never forget is that we're there as the people's representative in the courtroom. We need to be running this system in accord with the community's values. That's the reason why this possession is elected. So it's not just me at the top talking the talk, it's actually working hard to find people who get it and who want to be a part of it and are going to go out and do that job and understand the need for community connection when they do their jobs.
And Steve, you touched on such an important thing. I mean, it's representation, right? And that changes over time, which is why I go back to institutions need to keep pace with the change of the community, right? And if you're not, then you're completely out of touch. I mean, everything you talked about, the diversion, the cash bonds, those things could have been addressed years ago.
Right.
But it took your office, someone that wanted to make a difference and transform that office, actually happen.
Yes, Cesar, I have to tell you, I was shocked when I came in on January 1, 2020 and saw the state of the office, saw the lack of systems, saw the lack of policy, saw the backwardsness. You know, I thought that I was going to be reforming a prosecutor's office that was stuck in 2010. What I found was I was reforming a prosecutor's office that was, quite frankly, stuck in the 1980s. Same way of prosecuting, same way of looking at the world, same way of jamming through cases without any regard for what really is best for the community. It's the reason why there were people who were in prison that I had to get their convictions overturned and get them out of prison because there was a win at any cost mentality in the old office because they were stuck in that way of doing things and it was not serving the community well.
It's, did you ever see Les Miserables?
Yes.
So it was the Javert mentality, right?
That's right.
It's like you break the law, you pay, it doesn't matter, no empathy, no sympathy whatsoever. So we're going to go into our next segment, but folks, we're just getting started here. Man, time is flying. Our next segment, we'll be back with Mr. Toscano. We're going to talk about freedom. Come right back, please.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy.
What do you call a pig that knows karate?
Pork chop.
Why was the basketball court all wet?
Why?
Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Can I tell you another one? So how does a tissue dance? Put a little boogie on it.
What's Beethoven's favorite fruit? Banana. What is a boxer's favorite drink? Fruit punch.
Mom, I got it. What are you doing in there?
I got stuck.
Are you a dog?
I wouldn't do that. Have you seen the pliers? Where'd you find those?
It's not your birthday.
Sorry.
Bye, Grandpa.
Bye, Grandpa.
Take care of yourself.
What are you doing? What are you looking for?
To the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi, Folks, Cesar here, back with you. Appreciate you coming back to our third segment. Again, a very special guest in Studio C with me this evening, Steve Descano, Commonwealth Attorney for the County of Fairfax. We're going to be talking about freedom of choice and the right to self-determination. Little personal note on this, Steve. I have two lovely sisters. I have 51 first cousins, half of them are female. Why the heck are we messing with their choice? Help me understand that.
Cesar, I wish I could. I wish I could. There really is no good reason for it that I can see, other than, there are a certain segment of the population that want to control individuals' bodies.
Oh yeah, Iran.
Yeah,
Iran.
and some members of the Republican Party.
Oh, okay.
Those are your two groups. And then unfortunately, there is purchase in different places, including in Virginia now with our Attorney General, our Governor, our Lieutenant Governor, who see it as a way to get votes and a way to win elections, which is just really shameful. If you're in elected office, you should be looking out for the best interests of your constituents, not how you can get one over on them just to get a couple more votes.
Yeah, this fires me up way too much, man. I'm a big brother, so man, don't mess with my sisters. Don't mess with women. You're going down the wrong path for many reasons. So, how can the Commonwealth Attorney's Office in Fairfax help out our sisters?
Well, it is something that also as a big brother, as a father or a daughter.
Good man, good man.
There you go, bro.
Yeah.
And also just somebody who cares about basic human dignity.
Yeah.
It's something that I've thought a lot about. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that if an abortion ban were to be passed in Virginia, and by the way, it's not as far-fetched as some people might think. The Republicans in the House of Delegates control the House of Delegates. It'll pass through there. Democrats have a one-seat majority in the state Senate, but we have one Democratic state senator who considers himself pro-life. And then we have an election coming up next year. So there could be an abortion ban with criminal penalties in Virginia potentially this time next year, which is scary enough. But if that were the case, the last line of defense is your local prosecutor. It's your Commonwealth's attorney. The reason for that is all these bans carry criminal penalties. That's how these things are going to be enforced. And if a prosecutor says, like I've said it in the New York Times, I've been one of the leaders in the country on this, I will not prosecute an individual for making their own healthcare decisions. I will not prosecute a person for getting an abortion. What that means is that person's never going to be prosecuted in Fairfax County, but more so than that, it's going to save them from the trauma of the entire situation. And let me explain why. If you had a prosecutor who said, you know what, I am going to enforce criminal penalties in an abortion ban, what that means is any person who has a miscarriage is automatically suspected of a crime. What that means is, right?
No dignity.
No dignity. So you're going to have police officers rooting through that person's trash to see if there are liquor bottles or pill bottles. You're going to be getting search warrants for their text messages and their emails to see what they thought. They're going to be pulling in their intimate partners for interrogation. They're going to be serving subpoenas on doctors and nurses to try to get information. Well, do you think this person might have induced that abortion or that miscarriage such that it's an abortion? And even if at the end of that investigation, there's no evidence, think about the trauma that has just put that person through. But if the prosecutor says, in my discretion, which is the backbone of prosecution, using your resources the right way, saying in my estimation, we don't have the resources to go after that, and also the people in my county don't want us to go after that, the police won't do it. And that is how prosecutors really can orient how law enforcement works. And it's not just theory. Cesar, one of the things I did, actually the first thing I did when I took office, is I said, I'm no longer going to prosecute individuals for simple possession of marijuana. We fought like dogs to make sure that happened. In the first couple months, we kept hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people from getting a criminal record. And do you know what happened? Eventually, the police saw, wow, he really isn't going to prosecute these cases. We might as well stop wasting our time investigating them. So I hope it never comes to it. But if an abortion ban passes in Virginia, your last line of defense is your elected Commonwealth's attorney. And I think people out there should know that. And quite frankly, they should be holding their elected Commonwealth's attorney to that standard, and it's something that they should get asked everywhere they go when it comes time for re-election.
Yeah, I don't get it at all. I mean, I know what it is when government controls manufacturing production, but I don't know what it is when government controls female reproduction. Right? I mean, philosophically,
Right.
those are different views, but the same people seem to be pushing, opposite views on that. So.
And the really distressing part is, if this wasn't distressing enough already, is, we used to have a Supreme Court. We used to have a judiciary that people could believe in and say, you know what, no matter what these states do, we can go to court and we can, and our rights can be protected. All of a sudden, we have a new Supreme Court, and it's the first time, I think, in the history of our country that a right that has been established has been taken away by our Supreme Court. So what it comes down to is, you talk about the intellectual, the philosophical underpinnings of this. All I can say is, I don't think there are any. I really do think that this is a massive power grab by one party in our country. It's a fulfillment of promises that individuals have made to raise money and to get votes. And the shame of it is there are some true believers in the Republican Party who want this. And then there are plenty of people who never thought they would get this far. Now they find that they are the dog who caught the car. And unfortunately, they do not have the courage to stand up and say, you know what, this is wrong. And that's why it's really important that, at least where we live, that we elect the right people, that this becomes a high priority issue in every election, including local elections, and we hold people to that standard.
Yeah, I just think this is not going to be solved anytime soon. It's actually taken 50 years backwards to where it was, right? I mean, and that, for me, is the bigger concern, because, to your point, people had the freedom and they lost it. The march to a more perfect union is about more liberties.
Right.
It's not, limiting choice, right?
Right.
It's being able, and I use the term self-determination because everyone should have that option. And it's not my business, it's no one's business, what a woman does with her body and whatever relationship with her family. I can't impose my views on that person. So I am still struggling to understand why people in elected office feel they can. Because for me, that's, again, you're messing with my sisters, man.
Right.
Don't tell them what to do.
No, it's terrible. It is. Look, I think that, this is a 5-alarm fire.
Yeah.
Right. I used to be on the board of NARAL Pro-Choice Virginia, fighting for reproductive rights, and I remember that was 8 years ago. And I remember calling around people, hey, we're fundraising for this. Can you come to this event? Can you do that? And Cesar would hear from people time and time again. You don't have to worry about this. It's been a right for 45 years. It's never going to go away. Well, here we are.
Right.
And I think that it doesn't matter if it affects you personally. If you care about dignity, if you care about liberty, if you care about human freedom, it does affect you, right? Whether or not you can get an abortion or not, it does affect you. Because what we're seeing, as you mentioned, is a diminution of rights, which we're trying to go forward. We're trying to progress forward. This is just taking us backwards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little troubled by what's being said publicly by public officials. It's almost like, there's this view, this faith, this belief that you must align with. And that's not freedom. That's not what the founding fathers were trying to create when they created the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, right? It wasn't about that.
It wasn't, and it's really unfortunate. I feel like we've been served a bad hand here in Virginia, and let me tell you why. We have a governor who, it seems that all he cares about is running for president, and he'll say whatever it takes. I mean, look, we've seen him go and campaign for Paul LePage, a guy with incredibly racist views. He's going out to Arizona to campaign for a person who still thinks that the 2020 election was stolen, right? So this is a person that will say whatever he thinks will get him another vote. We have an attorney general, the person who's supposed to go to court and represent Virginia, who is not a deep thinker. is not somebody that I would call intellectually gifted when it comes to really understanding these core documents that are the founding documents of our country. He is a guy who is going to toe the party line and do not what is in the best interest of Virginians, but what is in his best interest to get on Fox News that night. And that is a very, very scary thing, that these are the people that are in the power positions when it comes to autonomy and freedom in Virginia.
Do these people believe what they say? Or is it more for show? And
you know, not knowing these individuals personally, I couldn't tell you, but Cesar, which one is worse?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Which would you rather have a true believer who's doing something nuts because it's their conscience, or would you rather have somebody who knows it's wrong but does it out of pure selfishness? I would rather have somebody who had the right values and was following their conscience. That's what we try to do here.
I'd rather have someone like yourself, cerebral, data-driven, deeper thinker than myself in that role of leadership, quite frankly. So we need more people like you to get out there. So.
Well, those are very kind words. I will say that, you know, the one thing I tell people over and over again, leadership is dictated by the people. The people people aren't born to leadership. They earn that trust of the people. And the people that come out and work and that come out and vote, if they do that hard enough and do that regularly enough, they will get leaders who represent them well and represent their values. So that's why I always tell people, look, I am looking forward to this fight, because you know I'm a fighter. But more than that, I'm looking forward to linking arms and standing shoulder to shoulder with the members of our community, the people who care about these issues and have the values that you and I share, because this is a power grab by these Republicans, and the only thing that they're going to respond to and respect is power back.
I don't disagree. I think there's a lot of that power grabbing going on at all levels. It's at school board. It's certainly at the state level. It's congressional. It's federal. So it's going to be an interesting decade, I think, going forward here. Let's save that a little bit for the next segment, because I do want to touch more about next year, and there's a lot of things going on with the election cycles. You are running again, right?
I will be on the ballot next year, yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to clarify that and just make sure, because if you weren't, I'd say we were in really big trouble here, dude. So let's keep some of that focus for the next segment. And I'm really glad you're here, man. I know a lot of folks are interested in you. Folks, thanks for sticking around so far. Please come back in our last segment with my good friend Steve here in the studio.
Excellent. Nice work, man.
Sure thing.
Hi.
Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help.
You were probably going to turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to things that'll bring the trauma. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate, and that's exactly how anger works and operates. Man, you gotta have love just to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all.
People killing, people dying, children hurt, and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach, but you turn the other
Ma'am,
cheek.
you forgot your purse.
Oh, you don't know how worried I was. Thank you very much.
Hey.
Honesty. Pass it on.
Nice move, kid. Donut?
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
report back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. Thanks for coming back to our last segment. With me in Studio C here is a very special guest and a very dear friend of mine, Steve Descano, Commonwealth Attorney for Fairfax County. Sir, thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us here.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I enjoy getting a chance to talk to the community and getting a chance to talk to you.
I will tell you, I'm out there on the doors. I'm up for re-election this year, and I'm hearing a lot of folks. Generally, they're feeling better about things and the economy, and safety is a little bit of a concern for some folks out there. So, what's that looking like for you over the next year or so here?
Well, look, Cesar, safety is always our top concern. When we talk about things like getting rid of cash bail, diversion, the treating kids as kids, those things are all aimed at safety. We know that both short-term and especially long-term, those are going to lead to better outcomes. What we have right now, again, we are the safest community of our size anywhere in the country. Crime has gone down since 2019. By every metric, we are, and by the way, and our jail population is as low as it's ever been. So we are threading the needle of reform and bringing community safety. But that doesn't mean we rest on our laurels. No. We are always looking to level it up and step it up a notch. It's the reason why we do what we do and we talk to so many members of our community. The things that you're hearing are the things that we hear every day. And what really distresses me about it is not everybody, but enough individuals, when I talk to them and I get down to the nub of their issue, what I hear is not something they've seen or something that or their friends have experienced, but something that our Republican Attorney General or our governor has said. Because right now, what we are seeing is crime, the creating of a crime wave that doesn't exist, is really this year and next year's critical race theory. It is the lie that Republicans are going to tell to try to make an emotional appeal, a fear appeal, to just enough people to peel them off from voting for Democrats. We're seeing it now in the 2022 cycle, and we're definitely going to see it again. The fact of the matter is that our Attorney General, our governor, could take a look at Northern Virginia, take a look at some of our most diverse places in the Commonwealth, and without any evidence, with evidence actually going the other way, say, oh, there's a crime wave, or you should be scared, or this or that, is the worst type of Willie Horton dog whistle politics. I would have thought that we would have been past that, but unfortunately we're not. Now that being said, this is not me brushing away concern. I want the people to know that they have a Commonwealth's attorney who every day wakes up and the first thing in his mind is, how do I make my community more safe?
Clearly the contrary view would be, hey, we need to make it about culture wars. And you're trying to deliver success through policies. Right. So,
if
I like your approach better, by the way.
Oh, I appreciate that. I like my approach better too. If we lived in a saner world, Fairfax County would be lauded as an example for communities around the country to follow. If you think about it, what have we done in 2.5 years? We've lowered our jail population. We've started to treat kids like kids instead of charging them as adults. We stopped criminalizing poverty. We're trying to help people in the grips of drug addiction get their lives back on track. We are doing nothing less than trying to bring opportunities back to communities, and we're changing lives for the better. And at the same time, crime is going down, right? That is what we want. That is the threading the needle, that if it wasn't for politicians who were trying to move up to the next level, who would say anything and would sell out anybody to do that, Fairfax County would be the model jurisdiction around the country. Now, fortunately, we are seeing that. Like I said, I get calls from jurisdictions almost every week about what we're doing, but it's very unfortunate that we have the leaders that we have in Virginia. And I have to say, I'm going to make a special shout out here to our Republican Attorney General, Jason Miyares. This is a guy who likes to think of himself as a tough on crime prosecutor. I know for a fact he was a prosecutor for a very short time down in Virginia Beach, and he did nothing but DUIs. Not saying that that's not important, but what we have is we have an Attorney General who knows next to nothing about criminal prosecution, trying to make his bones on this by picking on reform. It's sickening and nauseating.
Yeah, and I go back to, we had the discussion earlier, I think in the first segment, institutional thinking, or that, let's just call it first century Rome thinking, right, is not in line with where the community is today, right?
Right.
The needs, right?
It's not. And I can tell you that, look, you mentioned re-election. Obviously, I'm up for re-election next year. I really plan to go to the community and show them the successes that we've had, and ask if they want them to continue. Because look, we've had a justice system that has not worked for our community, for all members of our community, for decades. In 3 years, we've made a lot of great strides, but we're not at the finish line yet. It takes a while. We're doing our diversion programs that we've talked about. A lot of them are still in pilot program, right? They're going to change lives, but they're an iterative process. We want to continue on with that work.
Great.
Bringing somebody else in, they're going to stop that work. We've talked about transparency and being data-driven. We are very, very close to rolling out the beginning of a data program that is going to bring transparency to the community about what goes on. It's going to allow them to hold us accountable, and it's going to allow us internally to make better and more informed decisions. That did not exist, was not even a thought under the old, the way things used to be.
Right.
But it's difficult, it's hard. Most prosecutors like that black box. If we have somebody else in that office, I fear that they're going to stop that program.
Sure.
When we are talking about things like treating kids as kids instead of charging them as adults, when we're talking about things like trying to get away from mandatory minimum sentencing that doesn't make any sense. All of these things that we're really getting set up now and are running, they're all at risk.
Well, and what you're talking about really requires intellectual curiosity, right? And it's different, like what we've tried to do in Herndon, and it's been met with resistance. It's the same thing. I think we need to have another show on this. The institution says, no, we do it this way. Well, no, I just know from like my corporate background, you mentioned pilots. Well, I've introduced this thing and people hate it, but it's called the minimum viable product.
Okay.
Or proposal, or pilot, or initiative, where you invest a little bit and measure the results. What are the returns on what we've done? We don't have to try to deploy this 10-year study implementation of some solution that will probably be outdated by the time we get there. So I love what you're doing in terms of these mini little pilot things. You test them, you look at the data, and if it works, great, you invest a little bit more. If not, well, you do something different.
That's absolutely right. And you know, it's really refreshing to have people in government that think like you and I do. Because look, in my world, we're talking about criminal justice, crime. These things evolve. Yeah. Strategies need to change. Right. So when you're dealing with the needs and issues of 2022, using strategies from 1992, they don't work. And the only way that you're gonna be successful is if you try and study, make it an iterative process, have that intellectual curiosity, and be nimble enough to make it work. Right. That's what we're focused on here. We want to make sure. Look, again, we're the safest community of its size anywhere in the United States. But if that's all, if we just continue to rest on that, soon enough we won't be. Yeah. And that's unacceptable. So for us, building little pilot programs, moving the ball in different directions down the field, and actually trying to be proactive and responsive to certain things, is the reason why we've created a red flag law unit to get guns out of people's hands who represent a danger. That's a new law that came into effect that we are not just being reactive to, we are proactively out there trying to do things, because those types of new needs arise every single day.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Being a corporate guy, I believe Jack Welch said, it's not the richest, biggest, or most resource-intense company entity that survives, but the one most able to adapt to the change that survives, right?
And that's absolutely right. You know, I gotta tell you, we've had some really great success. One of the other things I do is I lobby down at the Virginia General Assembly for changes in the law. I'm one of the founding members of a group called Virginia Progressive Prosecutors for Justice, and we lobby for criminal justice reform needs. And because we have great delegates and senators, we've been successful, meaning that laws have changed, process have changed with those law changes, and it's incumbent upon our office to change how we do things and take advantage of those laws for the betterment of the community. Yeah. and it's being nimble and reacting to the change.
You talked a little bit about laws being there, process being there. I can point to things from like the 80s in her, the 1880s, right? I mean, just like, and you know, these things are still in the books, and you know, well, this business can't do this for this reason, and it's just, you have to change the institution. I mean, I hope you get that message, but people need to understand the institution can't stay the same.
It can't, and you know, it has, because when it stays the same, and look, I'll be very honest, this is what I found to some degree in our criminal justice system. We have people who were more focused on protecting their job, protecting when their lunch break was, protecting that they can run through a docket very quickly and be done with the day at 2 in the afternoon. And we, you know, came in and for lack of a better term, said we're not doing it like this anymore. So you make some enemies, but that's the price of change. You can't have everybody in a bureaucracy and institution that you're trying to change love you. What you need is people to buy into the vision and move that vision forward.
That's awesome. I'm remembering a couple things. Someone once referred to me as too controversial and too disruptive. Okay, so I wear those proudly because I think you do get change, right? I mean, you have to disrupt the status quo to progress. And the other thing I will share, Senator Warner told me this one time.
Okay.
And it's when I first won my first kind of party thing. And it's like, Cesar, give you some advice. Sure, absolutely. A third of the people are always going to love you. A third of the people aren't going to ever like you. And the other third just want you to get something positively done. And I kind of live by that, right? I mean, right off the bat, you got 2/3 of the people on your side.
Right.
So
and
keep that in mind.
I will keep that in mind because look, you and I know we're cut from similar cloths. Yeah. The attacks from the Attorney General, the attacks from the governor, the attacks from the Republican Party, I get them every day, but that means I'm doing something right. Yeah. And that's what I wear those like a badge of honor, because if they weren't attacking me, that means I wouldn't be doing things to make positive change.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, if you ever need any help, I'm here. Come on back. We got to schedule some more time. There's a bunch of other stuff I'd love to talk to you about, but brother, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely,
we really appreciate it. And folks, thank you for sticking around to the end of the show, and thank you for being a loyal viewer. Our guest, Steve Descano, Commonwealth Attorney, Fairfax County.